You're good. Ready?
Whenever you're ready. Go ahead.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are rolling into another episode of the Candace Owens Show, and one that I am very excited to bring to the forefront of the discussion. I always make the comment that there is not enough discussion between Black conservatives and Black liberals. For whatever reason, I invite so many Black liberals on to my show, and despite their willingness to tweet at me, to tweet about me, to write articles about me, they never take me up on that offer, which always leads me to the question, do they actually believe what they believe?
Those things can be used as a distraction from the point that you did touch on, which is that this was wrong and that state violence is wrong, no matter who it's against. And to me, whether he was on drugs, whether he robbed 10 stores, is irrelevant to this particular conversation.
Yeah, no, I think so. For me, I think it's actually very relevant, and not to, I wasn't saying that to overshadow the conversation. I actually didn't think that the conversation was being overshadowed, because it was actually the first time that there was a full consensus, left and right, that this police officer was wrong. On top of that, there was a glorification happening of him, where people were actually saying that he was a hero. We had little kids wearing T-shirts calling him, George Floyd hero in these marches. I was looking at these T-shirts, and that's wrong. I can't get behind that. If your point is that you're defending Black lives, this whole platform is supposed to be about Black lives. George Floyd spent his entire life harassing Black people and destroying Black lives. So I just don't see how it can be both. We are hypocrites, right? So you say, oh, well, it's not the point. Well, where were we on the issues of kids getting shot, actual innocent Black victims being killed, every weekend, every day in the inner cities? Nobody cares. If you want to give somebody a funeral and you want to have it be 5 days long, why not do that for Tyshawn Lee, the 9-year-old kid who was wearing his school uniform and playing basketball when he was lured into an alley by, an older Black man who then shot him point blank in the head 2 times because he didn't like his dad. And it was like, it was gang violence. Nobody cared. So this whole idea of there's this uprising because you care about Black lives. Don't pretend you care about Black lives. You like the political expediency of caring about a Black life, if and only when they die at the hands of a police officer, or die at the hands rather of a white person, because it doesn't even have to be a police officer, as long as it's a white person. But we kill ourselves faster and nobody cares. So can you name the last 10 Black people that died of homicide in this country? Because it wasn't George Floyd. We're talking about a man. This is not a guy who just was bullying people. I mean, you force your way into a woman's home and put a pistol to her stomach and threaten to kill her as you rob her while she's pregnant. Okay, this guy was a terrorist, in my opinion. I think we are literally martyring somebody who terrorized the Black community his entire life. I'm not comfortable with it. Now, if he had done a 180 at the end of his life, I believe in forgiveness. I'm not above believing that people make mistakes, but this was not the story of George Floyd, and that is proven by the fact that he was on the most addictive drug that is in America today, which is fentanyl. Fentanyl is 100 times stronger.
But how does that make him a bad person?
How does it make him a bad person? I'm saying the idea, I'm attacking the narrative but then after his 9th stint in prison, which is, by the way, if you want to talk about a record, going to prison 9 times is very difficult to do, before you turn 40 years old, and he did it, okay? And then people wanted to say, then he moved to Minneapolis, changed his life around. I have a problem with the lie. I don't like a lie. He didn't change his life around. He was still doing drugs, he was still pushing drugs, and he was high on fentanyl and methamphetamine at the time of his arrest, which, by the way, fentanyl, quite literally, is what doctors give to patients when they want to bring down their breathing. And my problem is we can never have an honest discussion. There are so many Black victims in the world, true victims of homicide who have done nothing wrong. Maybe they were high school bullies.
But he was a true victim of homicide.
No, I'm saying, when I say, he was a true victim of a homicide, who knows at the end of the day, because right now there's disputes in the medical examiner reports. Some are saying that he actually died from fentanyl. His breathing was complicated by whatever. Then they got a private person. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to dispute the manner of his death, but I am going to agree that what Derek Chauvin did was an example of police brutality, regardless of whether or not is exactly what led to his death. I just don't think it's honest. It's not okay to me to elevate somebody who traumatized Black people their entire lives. He was a bad man, and is it relevant? Yeah. When you're putting him on T-shirts and you have little kids wearing posters and crying, yeah, that should not be your person that you're looking up to. I wouldn't tell my kids to put on a George Floyd T-shirt.
Yeah, I don't think the world is looking up to George Floyd. I think they're looking to his death as an example of what's happening to us every single day in societies. And I think that's
it's not happening to us every single day in society.
Oh, it absolutely is.
What is?
Excessive force, police brutality?
Police are killing Black Americans every day?
No, brutality, excessive force. I'm not talking about death.
is that there is no racial disparities when you look at the numbers of who's actually dying at the hands of police officers. So the entire narrative that's out there right now in the world is just patently wrong. If you're talking about deaths now, white Americans are 25% more likely to be killed by police officers. If you're talking about deaths, police officers are 18.5 times more likely to be killed by a black man than the other way around. Why aren't police, honestly, a protest by police officers against black men would make more sense. It wouldn't. It should be 18.5 times louder.
No, it wouldn't. And this goes to the question you asked about why we're not protesting black on black crime. Prisons are filled with black people for killing black people. Prisons are filled with black people.
No, so many of them are not caught. So I hate the fact that we're now shifting and pretending it's about something else, and we're widening the net, and we're making it about excessive force, studies that nobody is talking about on CNN. Everybody is talking specifically about the idea that a black man that is unarmed is likely to die at the hands of a police officer, and that's fraudulent. It's a lie.
So the movement for Black Lives is saying, look, we care about poverty. We care about certainly state violence. We care about food insecurity. We care about all of these things because they connect.
But they're lying. That's the whole point. You can put that statement on your website, but then when your solution to that is to go into streets and to riot and to burn down and to loot, and every time they have a protest, it ends this way. So it's not like there was like
That's
that.
Not true.
It's not like there was that one time where they started. Every time Black Lives Matter narrative starts running in the media, black people die, black people's neighborhoods get burned down. From the start of Trayvon Martin, moving on to Freddie Gray, and here we are today with George Floyd, with Ahmaud Arbery. This is what happens every single time. So if there was if there was that one time, there may have been other protests that were. I'm not condemning all protesters. I believe in protesting.
I'm pushing back against the every time narrative.
No. Okay. What I'm saying is every time their narrative, like when I say becomes mainstreamed, every time their narrative, every time you go, whoop, we're doing Black Lives Matter again, you can bet your ass all across the nation, black neighborhoods are going to burn, black people are going to lose their jobs, and black people are going to lose their lives, right? So that's the hypocrisy. The idea that they care about all this other stuff, when in fact, every time they're protesting, it is specifically about police brutality, okay? And black people suffer. So if your solution is worse than the problem, it's not a solution.
So
how many black people have died in these George Floyd protests?
So that's
how many black people have been arrested because of these George Floyd protests? How many black people have been impoverished because of these George Floyd protests? That's when it's a good time to sit back and say, is what I'm doing working?
That if we protest here, that that these police will come and harm us.
Yeah,
and that America
really
will see how
brilliant strategy
brutal.
because it showed America that the problem was the police. Do you think the spectacle right now is showing America that the problem is the police?
Yes!
The problem is no, it's not. When you look at these riots, it is not. This is the exact opposite of Martin Luther King's strategy. The exact opposite. Martin Luther King said, we're going to go in and be peaceful, and we're going to watch them send dogs on us. They're going to set their fire hose on us, and when the whole world sees these clips, they're going to realize that the problem is are white people that are racist and the governments that are allowing this terror to go on. Okay, win. He crushed that. It was a brilliant strategy. Right now, Black America's strategy is we're going to go in and be violent. We're going to go in and loot. We're going to go in and take the TVs, and then America's going to think, Black Lives Matter is a terrorist unit, and that's exactly what the concept is. It is.
But I guess what I'm pushing back against is
we don't look good. This is not making black people look good.
To say, well, now for black folk, we don't need that. We need less government. No, we need the investment.
You want the investment. So you do know governments don't make money, right?
I'm not suggesting governments make money.
So how is the government? You keep saying the government give us money, give us money. What is wrong with that? Governments don't make money. People make money, right? Capitalism makes money. New jobs, new businesses, new ideas.
Yeah, but
one thing that the government can do to help Black America is what Trump's doing right now: deregulate. Right? Stop with putting all of these traps and barriers for people that have good ideas and that are entrepreneurs, to come out and actually say, I want to start this business. For example,
I'm saying invest in the people in the sense of create equal opportunity and put capital in spaces and allow for the flourishment of capital in places.
Yeah, deregulating.
So that people
I'm agreeing. Deregulating, like
right.
equal opportunity zones, which the president's doing now.
Right,
saying, we'll give you a tax break that incentivizes a private business to come in and build their businesses in Chicago. We will give you tax breaks if you build your hub here in Chicago. That's the government's job.
And what if the government says, but you have to have X number of black people because of historic patterns of discrimination? You'd be okay with that, right?
No. Why would I be okay with that?
I would hope you would be.
No.
Because that's the type of regulation I'm talking about.
No, we can't ask for racism to combat racism. That's just, it's just so foolish. People keep saying this. So we need to have quotas. I don't want quotas. I'm not okay with affirmative action. All of that is racism. It's all racism, okay?
Why is it racism?
It's racism because we are smart enough to get into schools. We're smart enough to get into schools. I just met your daughter. She seems pretty smart. I don't think she needs the government to help her out to get into school. She's a smart girl, okay? It is a bigotry. It is a soft bigotry of low expectations, which is a phrase that was coined by George H.W. Bush. When you are saying to someone, George W. Bush, yeah, correct. When you are saying to someone, we have to do this so you can get into school, what you are saying to a black person is you're not smart enough to get into the school by yourself.
No, that's not what they're saying at all.
That is what you're saying.
No, what they're saying is that there's a pattern of discrimination and a lack of access.
Just make it merit-based. Don't even put your color when you apply for school. That's not discrimination. It means you didn't get in because you did the best.
Yeah, if everything were facially neutral, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
That is the answer. No racism. No discrimination.
If it were facially neutral, but
Yes.
but underneath it were contextually neutral, I'd be fine with that. If everybody had the same chance.
In Thomas Sowell's book, it exactly shows that, and this is why Clarence
Wait, it shows
Thomas.
what?
It shows that black kids, when they are mismatched in schools because they are accepting affirmative action policies and putting them into schools where they get that they are
if you're saying people who are mismatched for schools don't stay, I'm not disputing that point.
And they actually end up being at the bottom of their class. It's actually bad for black people. Affirmative action has harmed black people because here's the problem, and I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. So Thomas Sowell was an adjunct professor at Cornell University, and he was teaching, and he learned that something like 25% of all of the black kids were on academic probation. So he went to go investigate. Why are all the black kids on academic probation? Well, it turns out all of those black kids were let in based on affirmative action, meaning, and he said, by the way, these were the top tier black kids in America. If they had actually got into a school, maybe they went to UNC instead of going to Cornell, they would have been at the top of their class. But because they mismatched and they put them into a class that was slightly higher and they weren't able to compete at the level of everyone in that class, they were then at the bottom.
So
it doesn't help those kids to finish at the bottom of Cornell rather than finish at the top of another school. They could have been at the top of another school if they just were matched into the correct universities.
Yeah,
it hurts black Americans. What do you mean there's no way to predict it?
How can you predict someone would have?
You can't predict it. You can assess it retro. You can do a retro assessment.
How can you retroactively assess that someone would have been at
because
top
you
of the
look
class
at
at
all
UNC?
of the black kids, right? And you look at their SAT scores and you say, if they had actually gotten into this school, which is where they belonged, as opposed to putting them in this school because they were black. So Harvard's saying, let's let them in on an affirmative action-based
But I'm saying that's not
system.
how college-based admissions. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying. What I'm disagreeing with is the presumption that we're taking as fact that people are admitted who are wholly unqualified for these admissions.
They are.
No,
They're below the average SAT score of all the other Chinese kids and white kids that get into these schools.
Do I think there should be a quota of white people
To make sure that they're getting a good diverse experience you just talked about?
If there were, and then I want to return to this other point because I think it's key. It's apples and oranges, but yeah, I'm
always apples and oranges when you want to talk about equality when it comes to black America.
No, because white people aren't being systematically.
It's not a racist society to let them in based on the color of their skin, but it is racism if you don't let them in on the color of their skin.
What I'm saying is that if there were a history of white people being denied access to Howard or Morehouse or Spelman, then I'd say yes, we absolutely need a quota of white people because they deserve to be there, right? Right. But, okay, you were asking me if there were a white school that had very few black people, but that black people were allowed to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying we do. They call them Yale, Harvard, and Princeton. That's my point.
No, but they have quotas.
They don't have quotas. What they have is what they do is they consider race as a factor in admission. And I'm saying similarly, yes, I absolutely think it's
That's
okay.
Racist.
No, I'm saying it's racist to consider
race. Yeah.
So
that's race. That's literally like the definition.
No, it's not the definition.
Yeah,
Considering race is not the definition of racism.
If you're making a decision, right, based on this color of somebody's skin, that is racism.
No, it's not. So racism, it becomes racist if I am using race as a factor to discriminate against you, to deny you access to resources,
they do that.
to deny you access to
something. They do that to the Chinese people. That's why they're suing. That's why they keep going to the Supreme Court. They're now actively not allowing Chinese people and Asian kids who work their asses off and just perform better than every other race in America. Sorry, they are at the top of this society for a reason. Asian Americans are being discriminated against because they want more diversity, and there's too many Asians at MIT or too many Asians at Harvard, and they're saying, you can't come in, we need to let some black people in, even though your test scores are way higher and you've done more, and that's wrong. That's discrimination. You're discriminating against Asians, and overwhelmingly, there's a reason why we're dropping out of high school at a higher rate.
There are lots of reasons.
And but we never talk about what we're doing wrong, and it is culture, right? And even we value breaking down education even via our hip hop, our music, everything. We actually value a lack of education. We see that as Black culture. Do you get what I'm saying? Like Ebonics, that's us, right? And then we're surprised.
Ebonics a lack of education?
And then what I'm saying is that you're what Ebonics is you're breaking down the English language, right? And then we're surprised.
No, it's a dialect of the English language.
Okay, it's a dialect of the English language, but it's not proper English, right? And then we're surprised when 75% of Black boys can't pass a reading exam, and then we want to blame the government, right? 75% of Black boys in California, then you want to say it's the government. The government's doing something wrong. What are we doing wrong? Right? Do we do anything wrong? Can somebody remind me of the campus that Brett Weinstein got chased off of? Evergreen campus, where they decided it was only Black people who were going to be allowed in the campus for that day. And one professor who was white said, well, I want to stay here and teach my class. And they chased him into a room with a bat.
Yeah, this shouldn't happen. We can agree on that.
But
that's not the same thing as an admissions policy.
But the culture that, first off, an all-black dorm is racist, and this is my problem, is that somehow we've arrived suddenly into a place where Black Americans are authoring the exact same thing that our ancestors fought to end: discrimination, segregation. But we've made a spin on it and said, but this is a positive form of discrimination. This is a positive form of segregation because we're choosing it. It's wrong. It's just wrong. I mean, I don't see how you can't just plainly say an all-black dorm is racist. It should be all black, all white, all Hispanic. It's racist. It should never exist at all.
Excuse me. If I were at Howard and there were a group of white people who said, you know what, we're the 50 white kids at Howard and we want to have our own space, cool. I'm good with that.
An all-white dorm at Howard. You think that would go down well?
I think it's such a counterfactual hypothetical because most white people don't want to go to Howard because they don't want to be around that many Black people. And that's okay.
Like that. So I personally believe comedians are in a sacred space and they shouldn't be attacked. Especially in today when we're in cancel culture all the time. We need more comedians to just take risks and say stuff. But I wanted to ask you, as a last topic about the LGBTQRSTUVWXYNZ agenda.
The agenda? That sounds so nefarious.
It is agenda. It is agenda. When you start, trying to get policies placed into school that allows teachers to call your child by a different gender, and as a parent, they're not required to tell you. They could be calling your little boy Samantha all day at school, and they don't have to tell you. That's an agenda, right? When you start trying to systemize it, and to make it systemic, it becomes an agenda. And when you see how vicious that lobby has become, particularly the trans, I've said, you had me at the LGB, lost me at the T.
Why the T?
The T, because that's when you started telling people they were bigots because they don't want to play the crazy game. So here's my point. I think trans is a mental disorder. I think there's tons, gender dysphoria is a mental disorder. There's tons of mental disorders out there. There are people that walk around down the street and think they are Superman. Think they have powers and they can fly and they're Batman. And I would never want to see that person attacked. Yeah. I don't play that game. I'm going to live in reality. You cannot live in reality. You can say how you feel. You can say what you think you see. You can say that you think that, we're on Mars right now, but I'm not going to pretend that I see Mars because it makes you more comfortable.
If I told you my pronouns were she, her, you would address me as she and her, right?
No, I wouldn't.
Really?
No, I would call you Mark.
Okay, but you wouldn't call me he.
No, because I would call you Mark. If that was something that made you comfortable. But if I saw you,
and if I said my name was Jane, would you then call me Jane?
If that was your legal name, yes.
But you'd only call me by my legal name.
Yeah, I call you by your legal name. I don't have an issue with that, but I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to change what these established pronouns for male and female because you say, I'm Mark and here I am.
The argument of the trans community, which I agree with, is no, I am a woman, and so I want you to revert me.
But you're not a woman, so that's the problem. So this is what I say is now you've asked me to take on your mental disorder, right? So I am okay with the fact the argument from my uncle who thinks he's a Native American from a certain tribe is that this is what he thinks. He thinks, but he's not. Okay? So I'm not, then to say to me that argument is valid because he thinks it, no. Just because you think something doesn't make it real. Okay?
But that's exactly what gender is. Gender is exactly about an experience and a performance and a social construct.
It's not a social construct. Stop saying a social construct. To say that words don't have meaning and they're socially constructed means nothing. And I'll tell you why.
They are.
But you say that, but then
This wasn't always a book.
Okay,
this could be called Mug.
So then what it is? Our entire discussion about Black America meant nothing. There's no such thing as racial injustice. You see what I did there? Because Black is a social construct.
Yeah, but we live in a social reality. So within that social reality...
It can't be both, Mark. So you either think that the gender wage gap is BS, that feminism is wrong, and that racial disparities are all BS because everything's a social construct. You're either going to go full postmodernist and say nothing is real and it's all made up, or you're going to acknowledge that there are some hard, concrete truths. If there are hard, concrete truths, you and I are Black, okay? That's not going to change because we wake up and we decide, you know what, today I'm white and it's just how I feel, and today I'm Chinese. No. You and I are Black, okay? We are acknowledged as Black people. We're sitting down as Black people. I am a woman. You are a man, okay? Now, if I want to wake up tomorrow and say I'm a man, you want to say you're a woman and we want to play the crazy game, we can do that. To then say all of society now is to pretend that it was all a social, no, it was a social contract. You were born a male. I was born a female.
Yes, that's a sex.
We are Black. Okay, it's a color though. Black is it's a word that we use to
So-
say a sex. Female is a word that we use that has a meaning.
Yeah,
it means
se-
you are born with a vagina. You can have children. You have a uterus. When you are a male, you are born with a penis. You can get a woman pregnant. These words have real meanings. We cannot suddenly get into society where there are no truths.
So to acknowledge a social construct does not mean that we ignore biology, and it doesn't mean that we don't have.
Can men get pregnant?
Depends. I know.
What does it depend on?
I know trans men that can get pregnant.
That means it's a woman. Only one sex can
Well,
get
that's
pregnant.
a circular argument. That's
It's not a
begging the
circular
question.
argument.
Yeah.
It's proving my thing. There is a truth, a concrete truth. You have to be born with a uterus to have a baby. Only women can get pregnant. The fact that we've arrived in a society where
Right, and that's the part I'm disagreeing with. That's the part I'm disagreeing
There's
with.
nothing to disagree with it. These are facts. So you can say that this person who is pregnant identifies as a man. That person was born a woman. I can tell you that every single time because only women can have sex because there are concrete truths about life.
Have babies.
Can have babies, pardon. And that is a hard truth about life. You cannot make that go away because you want to call a man, somebody who has a beard and dresses like a dude a woman. Only if it's pregnant, I can tell you exactly what it is. It's a woman.
Or a year from now, suddenly I have reimagined my identity, and I have recognized and affirmed my identity as a trans woman, and I no longer want to identify as Mark. I want to identify, as to use your example, as Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't be like, this book says Mark, you're Mark. You'd call me Tiffany.
I'd call you Tiffany, but I'm not going to call you she and her because that has real meaning, and I'm not going to play the
What's
game.
compromised by that is what I'm trying to understand.
My reality. You're now saying you've transformed your reality, and now I have to pretend that words have no meanings, and they do have meanings, right? So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to call you, hi, Tiff. How you doing, Tiff? Did you have a good day, Tiff? Great, Tiff. I'm not going to then say she. I'm not doing that. And if people cannot, if people the demand,
But you won't misgender me either.
what? I'll just call you Tiffany.
And if they say where'd Tiffany
And
go,
I
you're not
don't-
gonna be like he just left. You'll say she just left.
I'll probably slip up once or twice. But
I'm not talking about
Tiffany
mistakes,
just
but I'm saying
left.
you wouldn't intentionally misgender me.
No, I wouldn't intentionally misgender you, but I don't want Tiffany in my bathroom. I don't want Tiffany
But
in
you also
my
don't want
spaces.
tampons in the other bathroom. That's
Right?
what I don't get.
No, I don't care. I don't care. I think it's stupid. I think it's foolish. I think it's dumb. But if that's really where guys want to go, do it. I don't care. It's not my business. It doesn't impact me. I don't have to go in the bathroom. But I don't want Tiffany in my bathroom.
And you okay? Are you okay with gender neutral bathrooms?
That's how most bathrooms are. That's all. Go on the plane. They're all gender neutral.
No, I got you. But
Yeah,
I'm saying I'm talking about
bathroom, fine.
anti-trans community. That's like, oh my God, a gender neutral bathroom.
Because it's the
God made bathroom for man, bathroom for woman. I'm like, what are you talking about?
No, they've always been just bathrooms. Usually at small places, just bathrooms. It's fine, but like I can't stand the preamble to the Constitution. Any person can go here. We don't care whether you. Shut up.
I think that's a good thing. I think
It's
that's
just
about
annoying. It's just the constant virtue signaling. Shut up.